Everyone who is watching. I'm State Senator Shelley Mayer, representing the 37th Senate District in New York, and I'm here with many of my colleagues in elected office from the Assembly and Senate, and with the great PULP, the Public Utility Law Project, which is really the expert on how to participate in a utility rate case. And I'm here to tell you that if you are impacted by the rates of NYSEG or RG&E, you need to understand that you can, and it's not so hard to participate in a rate case. This webinar is intended to give you the information, the tools, and frankly, the confidence that you can speak up and let your concerns be known about potential very significant rate increases for these utility companies that are going to affect all of us who are in the service area of RG&E and NYSEG. I want to just briefly say before I turn over to my colleagues, the purpose of this webinar is to give you the tools and the confidence and the information to either testify at a hearing, submit an email, speak at a public event, but learn how you can actually make a difference and help us defeat this really high rate increase that we all oppose. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, New York Assembly Member Chris Burdick, and I want to thank PULP, which is really the expert and the detail person. But I want to point out that this is something we can all make happen if we join together and speak out loudly and clearly against the rate proposals, which are very significant and would be very adverse to all of us. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Chris Burdick, to continue in this introduction.
Thanks very much, Shelley. And I am Assemblymember Chris Burdick, and I represent the 93rd Assembly District, which is in Westchester County. And I'm an intervener or a party in this case because I'm very concerned about the really jaw-dropping proposed increases that are being requested of NYSEG and RG&E in their rate case before the Public Service Commission. And I feel a responsibility to those whom I represent to push back against it because they already are struggling to pay the bills under the present rate structure. So I do strongly encourage you to consider taking part in this because your voice really does matter. And with that, I would like to now turn it over to my colleague in the Assembly, and I should also mention other elected officials from the legislature and beyond that are parties in this case. And that includes, in addition to Senator Mayer from the Senate, there's also Senator Cooney, and in the Assembly side, Assemblymember Kaye, Assemblymember Clark, Assemblymember Kellis, Assemblymember Burke, and the Office of Assemblymember Werner. And we also have Westchester County that is a party in this case. It is extremely important that we have that kind of clout that is represented in this case, and we're hopeful that it will help to move the needle. And so with that, I would like to pass the baton to Assemblywoman Clark.
Hi, I'm Assemblywoman Sarah Clark, representing the 136th District, including the City of Rochester, Town of Brighton, and Town of Irondequoit, all customers of RG&E. I signed on as a party to this rate case because I want to make sure the issues and concerns of our residents, our nonprofits, our businesses are addressed. I have heard from countless constituents struggling to afford their utility bills, have improper billing, or are struggling to get good customer service. As this rate case moves forward, it is very important that we balance the reliability of our utilities with the financial realities of everyone in our community. Thank you.
I now would like to pass the baton to Assemblywoman Paula Kaye.
Thank you. I am Assemblymember Paula Kaye, and I represent the 100th District, which includes most of Sullivan County and Middletown and Walk Hill in Orange County. Most of my district is covered by NYSEG. And I am an intervener in this case, as are members of my office, because this is such an important issue. As my colleagues have stated earlier, People are choosing what bills to pay because the electric rates are so high now. And I cannot imagine how people will be able to afford an even higher electric rate if this rate case continues. So I want to make a note of the public hearings that are coming online. And while some of them are in person, especially for my county, and I believe Westchester County, as of right now, there is not a in-person location that the administrative law judges have chosen. So the online public hearing is October 21st at 1 p.m. And I'm sure we will be providing the link for that a little bit later. Again, thank you all for collaboratively working on this because we are stronger together.
I believe we're going to go directly to pulp now. Is that correct? Okay, our pulp friends, take it away. Teach us everything.
Thank you, Senator Mayor. Well, hi, everyone. Thank you for your time, for this opportunity to be able to share this knowledge, which is crucial to get everyone involved, right? Before I get started on all this information, I just want to take the time to thank everyone, our senators, our assembly members, and everyone that has been involved in this process. You are all vital, and the public is vital in order to make change. So today we'll be talking about how can the public participate? How can anyone participate in a rate case? My name is Jacqueline. I'm a research associate and communications assistant with Pulp. And joining me today is Patrick O'Brien, one of our staff attorneys, who actually is working in the NYSEG RG&E rate case. What are we going to be talking about today? We're going to be talking about who is Pulp. We are the Public Utility Law Project, and understanding what are rate cases. This is a legal process that oftentimes people do not know exist, and its impact, why it is so crucial for us to understand, because it impacts all of us on our day-to-day basis. What is NYSEG and RG&E asking for, and what are the changes that are going to be happening if they are given what they're asking for? And what is your role as the public and how you can shape outcomes? And lastly, how can we prepare you to get ready to speak at public hearings, submitting written comments? So who is Pulp? Pulp is New York's only nonprofit law firm that advocates for low-income and fixed-income utility customers across all of New York State. We've been around for about 40 years, and our work is diverse. We are in the rate cases, actively advocating for low-income utility customers to keep energy and water rates affordable. We also work with direct services, directly on the ground with customers who are struggling, providing one-on-one assistance on how they can handle shutoffs, billing disputes, and other utility emergencies. And also policy advocacy. We help create meaningful legislation to strengthen the consumer protections and make sure that there is energy justice. Legal proceedings, such as rate cases, have a lot of terms, a lot of acronyms that are often very confusing. So some important terms for us to know as we're speaking today and as you continue on in the public comments. The first one being the Public Service Commission, or the PSC, or the Commission. This is a 7-member body responsible for ensuring that the rates are reasonable and just. They vote on rate cases and they issue orders, which is the final outcome of the rate case and is what the utilities have to follow. There's also the Department of Public Service, DPS. These are the worker bees of the Public Service Commission. They report to the commission and regulate the private utilities as a party in the rate case. All these interveners come together to create a joint proposal in the rate case. This is a product of negotiated settlement between all the different parties of the rate case that eventually the Public Service Commission will vote on and create an order. The order is the final decision issued by the Public Service Commission that implements those rate changes and the service requirements. And we also have the supply rates and the delivery rates. This is extremely important to know when it comes to rate changes, because we're mostly talking about the delivery rates here. The delivery rates, your basic service charge, is what's regulated by the Public Service Commission and is what we're discussing in the rate cases. The supply rates is the cost of energy that the utility company purchases from an open market and passes it on directly to the customer. So there's no profit here, there's no regulation. What is a rate case? It is a formal process where utility companies are requesting to change the rates that is charging its customers. And why is this so important? They determine how much you are going to pay for electricity, for gas, or your water. And they influence all the different programs that utility companies have, such as infrastructure, climate resilience, and their customer service operations. And who is participating in this rate case? The utility company. We have Department of Public Service staff, and they're there to review the case, make recommendations. And then different members of the public, elected officials, interested nonprofits, environmental advocates, and more. All of these different parties are known as interveners. What's the process? It's an 11-month process. We start with filing, where the utility company is asking for all of its different changes and the money amounts. We have the public participation phase, where the public can attend hearings, submit written comments, and other ways of expressing what is happening to them as customers. And then we have the settlement negotiations. This is the nitty-gritty. This is where we go in and we're trying to create that joint proposal, the common ground between all of these different interveners. So that way then a decision can be made by the Public Service Commission to create an order. This usually lasts around 11 months. It can be a little longer, but typically it's an 11-month timeline. Within these 11 months, the first 4 months is the filing and discovery, where the utility company is filing that rate request. Parties are joining in, saying we're interested, we want to be an intervener, and they're reviewing what the asks are in preparation for the next phase, which is testimony and rebuttal. This is where direct testimony is filed by all of these different interveners. NYSEG and RG&E had submitted theirs on October 30th of this year. Rebuttal testimony, so the response to this direct testimony filed by the utility company, is then filed about 2 to 3 weeks later. And then we also have the public statement hearings during this time that can be virtual or in person, and they usually have several public statement hearings across service territory in hopes of capturing all the voices of the different customers. And lastly, we have the resolution phase. This is usually the last few months of the timeline of the rate case, and it goes from the testimony rebuttal to the recommendation of the ALJs. They present this joint proposal where the Public Service Commission will vote and issue that final order. If that rate case is extended past the 11 months, there is something called a make whole provision, which allows the utility companies to retroactively recover the approved rates from the filing date. In other words, if we go past those 11 months, the utility company can ask for month 12, 13, 14, however months we are delayed for the recoup of that time period. When we are in the rate cases, we're mostly discussing, like I said before, the delivery charges. This is the cost to provide you as a customer service. So it includes everything from the cost of meters, the meter readings, customer service, communications, accounting, and this is what is regulated by the Public Service Commission and the Department of Public Service. It's a little bit different than your supply charges. Your supply charges are not regulated. It's not fixed. They're volatile because it's coming from an open market. I often say we saw those supply charges go up with things such as the war of Ukraine or during COVID, when there was more demand. And so it was a little more expensive to purchase that energy. Customers can choose different suppliers known as ESCOs. We sometimes use caution with ESCOs because sometimes you can be paying more for those supply charges with an ESCO than you would with your direct utility company. If you want to learn more, I recommend that you use the New York State Power to Choose website. If you are a low-income household, it's important that you select the low-income participant box because not all ESCOs are allowed to provide you your supply. Only some are allowed to provide supply to low-income households. We could see the supply and delivery charges on a NYSEG bill here. It's divided out. We have first the information of the meters, your reading type, such as an actual bill or an estimated bill, and what was your usage for that month. And then we see the delivery charges. We could see here that basic service charge. That is what NYSEG and RG&E right now are proposing to increase. I don't think this is accurate, this $15.11, but that is what you are charged every single month just for being a customer. I say that because a lot of times people have time periods where they are away and there is no energy consumption in a month, but you will still be charged that basic service charge, even if there is no energy usage of that month. We could see the electric supply charges here. This is just the cost of energy. And like we could see here, it's being passed on directly to the customer. At this point, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Patrick, who's going to talk a little bit about the details of the specific NYSEG and RG&E rate case.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Again, my name is Patrick O'Brien. I'm a staff attorney here at Pulp, and I'm going to dive into this specific rate case. So who are NYSEG and RG&E? Both NYSEG and RG&E are subsidiaries of Avangrid. Avangrid is, a large kind of conglomerate. It's not based in the United States, which is kind of just important to know, when you're writing your testimony and people just find that interesting. You can certainly go online and learn more about the history of Avangrid and utilities. It's pretty fascinating and pretty complicated. NYSEG and RG&E provide electric and natural gas services across much of upstate New York, Western New York, however you want to call certain areas of New York. I know we all have different preferences, but generally upstate is the territory, with NYSEG being more in the Catskills area, and RG&E is obviously Rochester Gas and Electric, so that's the Rochester Gas and Electric area. Both of them are investor-owned utilities regulated by the New York State Department of Public Service, otherwise known as DPS. So let's just get into it. What is the request? So NYSEG is proposing $464.4 million for electric and $93 million for gas. RG&E is proposing $220.2 million for electric and $72.9 million for gas. And as you can see on the slideshow, we have the calculated average bill impacts for both electric and gas for NYSEG and RG&E. They are a little bit different depending on which company you have, but they are relatively around $33 for electric, and gas for NYSEG is a little higher, around $33, whereas RG&E gas is around $18. And it's important to know that these are the average bill impacts, per average household, right? So this might vary depending on exactly where you live, how big your house is, how big your apartment is, what you're using electric and gas for. But more importantly, that these are the, average increases per month. This is not the year increase. This is actually per month. Just something to keep in mind. These numbers, if you want to take a screenshot or just remember these numbers, they might be useful for you when you're writing your testimony later or speaking at the public hearing. It's pretty good to go in with specific numbers, which I will get more into those instructions and just some tips and advice later. Why is this amount requested? Rate drivers, correcting legacy issues. So a lot of this is higher storm and vegetation management costs, uncollectibles, expiration of prior rate plan mitigators, updated depreciation rates, state policy costs, These are just costs for certain programs, grid modernization for the CLCPA, like Climate Act goals, updated sales forecasts. And of course, they're saying, core business needs, increase O&M expenses, capital investments, cost of debt, required return on equity, and on the rate drivers, you can see some of the details of those items on the left. Major initiatives. First one is electric and gas reliability. So these are upgrades, expanding vegetation management, reducing outages and restoration time, customer service and affordability. So these are improvements for customer service, the call center, new virtual assistant programs for customer service. I just improving billing systems, online portals, all of that stuff. So we have rate drivers, and then we have major initiatives, which are, can kind of be considered improvements. And then the last major initiative would be clean energy. A lot of this deals with solar, installing EV charging ports, installing advanced meters, renewable energy goals, and a carbon-free grid by 2040. So there's a lot in here that goes into the amount that NYSEG and RG&E are requesting. Why participate in a rate case? First is the direct impact. Decisions set rates, customer service standards, environmental practices that affect every utility bill. So this is really your chance every 2 to 3 years to participate. Rate cases don't happen that often. In our world, it seems like they happen often, but in terms of participating, you really only get a shot every 2 to 3 years, sometimes every 1 year, depending on the outcome of the prior rate case. So this is your opportunity to have potentially a direct impact and participate on something that affects you and that you don't have the chance to do that frequently. It's also a good thing to elevate your voice and a rare chance to look into the utilities operations and push for change. It's a really interesting process, whether you have strong feelings about your utility bill going into it, you will certainly have strong feelings and opinions after. It is a great learning experience just to know how your utility rates are calculated, where that, why that money is being requested. And, utilities are such an important everyday aspect of most people's lives. And it's with the increasing costs, this is your opportunity to really see what it is you're paying for, where that money is going. PSC, the Public Service Commission, Department of Public Service, and the utility hear from the public. It's a personal issue, and it's okay to make this personal when you're participating. Your personal stories, and I will get into that a little bit later with the specific tips we have of participating, but it's okay to share your personal experience when you're participating in a rate case. It can go pretty far. Community power. There are multiple ways to engage: written comments, which will be online in the document system, testimony, public statement hearings, which are in person, and we have a schedule later in the slideshow about where those are and when they'll be taking place. And it's a good way to learn about your community, work with others, build collective strength, and show consumer priorities. You can work with local nonprofits, other advocates in the community with similar goals. And, it is pretty good to have, power and number if a lot of people in a community and a lot of organizations in a community have concerns about a specific issue or want something done. Ways to participate in a rate case. The first one is written comments. Pretty easy to do. All you need is a computer or phone. You can go to the local library and use their computer. You just go onto the internet on TPS's website. You search for the case. In this instance, it is a little complicated. There are There is NYSEG and RG&E, and they both have gas and electric cases. So there are 4 case numbers. So depending on, your issue or what you want to say, you might just want to figure out which case you want to comment on. But nonetheless, you go onto the DPS website, find the case, and you submit your comment online. It's pretty easy to do. You can also mail written comments by phone. Pretty similar. You just call up the commission's hotline or opinion line, and whatever you were going to say on a written comment, you can just say that by phone. And of course, just know that the written comments are online for anyone to see. So just be careful about what you write, and just know that it is out there. And same thing with the phone. Again, this is going to the commission, so just be mindful about what you say and how you say it. Public hearings are another popular way to participate in a rate case. There are in-person and virtual public forums where you can share your opinion and your experience with the Public Service Commission about the rate case. It's important to also know that the comments in these public hearings become part of the official record, and they can and they do sometimes influence the rate case outcome. So it's not just for fun or just a way to vent. It actually can have a real impact on the rate case, and the commissioners do listen to them and are there and hear them. So more in depth on the public statement hearings. Virtual, you can register in advance. The deadline for these virtuals are October 17th. It really is important to also check the Public Service Commission calendar or DMM docket, which is the document management system, which is where all of the case files are. They do sometimes change times and locations and deadlines. So, as far as we know, that is the deadline, but I would register sooner rather than later if you're interested in the virtual public hearing. In person, you do not have to pre-register for that. You can just show up, sign in, and you complete a little request card. And when it's your turn, you can speak. If you don't want to testify or you're not comfortable speaking, you can, of course, listen to both the virtual and in-person hearings. Pretty similar. It's for listening, there should be a link on the DPS website. They use WebEx. You can also listen by phone, and that'll be on their website, for details about what number to call exactly. In person, again, no pre-registration. You can just show up and listen to people speak. If you are interested, or maybe you want to participate in an X-ray case or something like that, you can just listen. You can also stay updated if you don't want to go to these events or testify. You can just sign up for email notifications through the DPS. This way you just get informed of updates. And of course, you can follow local news for anything that's going on. I also recommend going onto Google and searching, NYSEG or RG&E in the search box and clicking news. That way, all of the news articles will come up, usually in chronological order. So you can, of course, stay updated as much as you want, even if you don't want to actively, testify or listen. You can still be active, in an updated way. Here is the public hearing schedule for the NYSEG and RG&E rate case. I do want to point out that there was an address change for SOTUS. This has been updated on our slideshow, so the new address is 17 Maple Avenue. And again, that's important to always kind of check the website before you show up to one of these, just to make sure that nothing has changed. But as you can see here, there's location, date, time, address, scheduled all throughout the service territory, and down at the bottom, there's the virtual date and the 2 times. But if you want to just take a look at this and just remember where these are, and these are also on the DPS website. do's and don'ts, I went over some of these earlier, but in terms of the do's, definitely prepare ahead of time. You don't have to spend months preparing, but definitely know what you want to say, have an idea of what you want to say, know the basics of the rate case, how it affects you. Keep your comments focused. So, what is important to you with this rate case, whether it's the cost, the quality of the utility service, environmental factors, or community impacts. A lot of these are all very valid things to bring up and say. Share your personal and professional experiences. Your real life perspective is valuable and informative. It's sometimes good, and it's something to consider, saying who you are in the community specifically. Are you a business owner? How long have you been in the community? Do you live with a family? Does your family have any sort of, medical issues or anything at all that can be exacerbated by the rate case and its impacts? The more, appropriately personal your testimony is and your written comment or public comment is, the better it is. Speak clearly and confidently. You don't always have to be an expert, just be honest and respectful. That, kind of speaks for itself. Just speak clear and honest, and, this isn't necessarily a place to just vent. You definitely want to go in there with, a very specific thing of what you want to say and how you want to say it, and make sure that what you're saying is productive. And you also should thank the PSC for the opportunity to weigh in. Don'ts, sort of the opposite of the do's. Don't worry about being perfect. And just remember that your voice matters, even if you're nervous or new to this process. There are, with how much exposure these rate cases are getting, I can guarantee you're probably not the only person in there if that's your first time participating. Similar to what I said in the do's, don't go off topic, stick to the rate case, your issues with the utility. And again, they can be a variety of issues, but stick to the issues with the utility. It's a place to share your story. And one thing to note, question and answer will not be taken at the hearing. We've gotten questions before about interruptions in questions, and it's generally pretty, it is your space to say what you want to say. But just know that there isn't, a sort of question and answer type of feedback that's happening. Don't use inappropriate language or personal attacks. Stay civil, even if you're angry at the utility or frustrated. And this isn't something that's required, right? So if you don't want to speak or you're uncomfortable, like I said before, it's really valuable to just be there and see what's being heard in your community. It is your utility and they're providing a service to you. So if you don't want to speak, you are, it's great for you to actually be there just to know what's going on. Key issues to consider, environmental matters. There's a lot of talk in New York about leak-prone pipes, renewable energy, non-pipe alternatives, and the electrification of the grid. So these are just some things to consider. Specifically with this rate case, there is an open investigation about NYSEG and RG&E's billing practices, meter readings, and customer service issues. This is something that is ongoing, and the case number is up at the top. So you can write that down and you can search that in the DMM website that I referenced earlier if you want to see all the documents for that and how that proceeding is going. There is also an ongoing management audit case that the audit found 120 recommendations on the operations, customer service, security, and performance for the companies, which is a pretty significant amount of recommendations for one audit. That's also ongoing. So between the environmental matters, the open investigation with billing, the management audit, there are these other things happening at the same time as the rate case, and they are things that you can consider while you're writing your testimony, writing your public comment. I'm going to kick it off to Jackie for the final slide.
Thank you, Patrick. When do you call Pope? We are here to advocate when you need help. Our first initial steps are asking you to gather your documents. Call your utility company. That's what they're there for. They're there to help you and provide you a service. And a lot of times you should be able to resolve certain matters directly with them. And if you can't, you should, for example, if you have a balance on your account that you're looking to resolve with a payment agreement, or you need some assistance to lower it, definitely visit your local public benefits office, like your HR, like your DSS office. And lastly, you should file an inquiry or complaint with the Department of Public Service. DPS does not only get involved in the rate cases, but they're also there to help you. If you have tried everything with your utility company and you can't come to a resolution, you can submit an inquiry or complaint to their helpline or hotline, where a case could be open and they will assist you. If you have done all these steps and you still feel like you need more support, please reach out to us. Our information is here on the slide. You can reach us by our email, by our hotline, and our fax number. So thank you again for your time and your attention. We hope that this information was as valuable as we believe it is. We want to hear more voices and we want to see the public becoming more involved. Again, my name is Jacqueline and I'm here with Patrick. And thank you again. Hope you have a great day.